2, we're going to learn how to go from fractions that aren't easy to use, such as tenths and hundredths, or fractions that can easily be converted to tenths and hundredths. We're going to work with some other fractions that are messy. So let's start with number 1, and then we'll go up to the top. So if I want to find a fraction, if I want to find a decimal from a fraction, I'm going to use it as a division problem. So this is 1 divided by 8. So it is 1 divided by 8. Well, I know that 8 doesn't go in there evenly, so I'm going to put a decimal. I carry my decimal to the top, so it goes into 1 0 times, but I can add a 0 and I haven't changed it. It's still 1. So 8 goes into 10 one time. 1 times 8 is 2. Sorry, that's my mistake. 1 times 8 is 8. And I subtract, and I get 2 left over. Well, I still have a remainder, so let's keep going. So I'm going to add another 0. And I drop the 0. And 8 goes into 20 twice. 2 times 8 is 16. And I subtract, and I have a remainder of 4. Well, let's add another 0 and see if we can get this number to find its complete decimal. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. And I have nothing left over. So this is my decimal. 0.125 or 0.125. And we do this by doing long division. Yes, long division is something you probably haven't done for a long, long time. I'm going to ask that you try this without a calculator first and to use your multiplication chart, and then you can use a calculator to check. So let's try number 3. And I'm going to do that over here. 16 doesn't, so there's my 1. 16 doesn't go into 1. Oops. There you go. 16 doesn't go into 1. It doesn't go into 10. So I'm going to add a 0. I bring up my decimal place to hold it, and I put place holding zeros in that place. 16 into 100. I know it goes in there. I want to say 8 times. 8 times 6 is 8. Carry the 4. 4 times, sorry, 8 times 1 is 8. 12. Oops, I was wrong. That's way too many. So let's try a different one. Let's try 5. 5 times 6 is 30. Carry the 3. And 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3 is 8. Well, that's going to be too much because that's going to give me a remainder of 20. So now I got to go up one more. And sometimes you're just going to be making mistakes like this, and that's okay. So let's try 6. 6 times 6 is 36. Carry my 3. 6 times 1 is 6 plus the 3 is 9. And I subtract that, and I'm going to get 4. Well, I'm not done yet, so I'm going to add a 0. And I'm going to bring it down. 16 goes into 4 twice. 2 times 16 is 32. And I get 8 left over. Well, that's not there yet. So I'm going to add another 0, and I'm going to bring it down. 16 goes into 85 times. 5 times 6 is 30. Carry my 3. 5 times 1 plus 3 is 8. So I have 80. So my decimal for 1/16 is 0.0625. So messy, 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 messy. But you guys can do it. And if you guys get stuck, try a calculator out just so you can see how do we go from a fraction to a decimal. Now, let's go back up to the top. There are going to be some messy fractions, and they're called repeating fractions. So I want you to notice that if I were to continue this problem, I'm going to go 1, divided by 3. And 1 goes into 3 times. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. And I'm going to subtract that. I forgot to carry my decimal up. And I'm going to get 1 left over. Well, I add a 0. Bring it down. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, I get a 1. Add a 0. Bring it down. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Minus that, I get a 1. Add a 0. Bring it down. 3 times 3 is 9. And I think you guys are starting to see the point. This is called a repeating decimal. That means it's going to go on forever and ever and ever. Now they show us 2 ways that we can write it. And this one is weird. Just go with it. Only do that way when they ask you. 33 and 1/3 is very weird. We would go 0.3 repeating. And they put it on the last 3, but you could go like this. You can go 0.3 repeating. So anytime you have a decimal that repeats, you can just put it in like that. So number 5 says, change each fraction to a decimal in the hundreds and express anything left over as a fraction. So let's go into this. I have 3 goes into 2. Well, it doesn't, so I add a 0 and a decimal. Raise my decimal straight up. 3 goes into 20 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Left over with 2. 6 times 3 is, add a 0. 6 goes into, drop my 0. 6 goes into 20. 3 goes into 20. Sorry about that. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract. And they want us to stop there and then put this as a decimal or as a fraction. So I'm left over with 2 over 3. So I get 0.16 and 2/3. Now the real way to, or 0.66 and 2/3, sorry about that. The real way to write this would be 0.6 repeating. 7, it goes on forever. And this is where I'm going to actually show you how to use a calculator. So let's pull up a calculator. And I'm going to go 3 divided by 7 equals. And I want you guys to notice that it does have a repeating pattern, but we have to look for it. So I have 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, 1. And then it goes to another color of 4, 2, 8, 5, and if I kept going, 7, 1. So this all is my repeating decimal, 0.42857 So let's go back to our Cami page and write that in there. This is 0.42857 I believe that was what it said. 42857 Yes. And that repeats. We're just going to leave it there because that one's really super messy. 7s are the messiest. Let's do number 11 together. We're going to see when we can find something repeating. So let's go 7 divided by 9. Well, it doesn't go in there, so it does go into 70. 9 goes into 70 7 times. 7 times 9 is 63. And I'm going to get a leftover of 7. So I add the 0, bring it down. 9 goes into 70. 7 times 9 is 63. And now you guys see the pattern. So it's 0.7 repeating. We have 2 story problems that you're going to try out, and I'll go over them in class. I will do 13 and 15 in class. Now we're going to look at fractions and decimals in sports. You guys have heard of somebody's batting average. Well, let's figure out how they figure that out. And so they actually just divide how many times they hit the ball, those are hits, over how many times they were at bat. So for players A through H, they want you to round to the nearest thousandth. So that's going to be 3 decimal places. So if I have 2 divided by 7, and remember I told you 7s are messy numbers, so we're going to go back to that calculator, and we're going to go ahead and divide that out. And I'm going to go, and I already forgot what it was. It was 2 divided by 7. So 2 divided by 7 equals, and it gives me a crazy number, and they only want me to go to the thousandths place. So if I go to the thousandths place, that's here, but I have to round. So this one tells me to round up. So that would make this really a 6. So my answer is 0.286. So the average is 0.286. Well, we know from up above that 2 divided by 3 gives me a repeating decimal of 0.6. Or if you were to write it all the way to the hundredths, it'd be, and I'm going to write that in a different color so you can see it, 0.667, just so you can see that. Go ahead and find the decimal for these, and then they want you to order it. Number 3 is difficult, not going to lie. They give us a bunch of information, so let's read it. To figure out team standings, a team is given 2 points for a win. So every time they win, we're going to multiply by 2. Every time they have a tie, we're going to multiply by 1. And then we're going to go to 0. This tells us how many games total. So we're going to add. So we add and then multiply by 2. So these go in the parentheses. So let's figure all this out. And I'm going to erase the add and multiply by 2. So what I write in blue is what we're going to add. So 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. And that is 0. So far, my top fraction number is 6. When I add all of these up, I get 5. And 5 times 2 is 10. So that is my bottom number. Now I divide that out. 6 divided by 10 is 0.6. Let's try that for team B. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 0 is 0. I add that up, my top number is 7. When I add these numbers up, I get 6, and 6 times 2 is 12. Well, I'm going to go back to my calculator, and I'm going to go, let's look at our fraction again. 7 out of 12. I'm going to go 7 divided by 12, and I'm going to get 5.8, and then it's 3 repeating. So let's go back to our Cami page. And our answer is 50.583 repeating. So try that out for C and D. They want you guys to put it, who is the best team to the worst. Remember they said best first. And then if you won all the games, what would your standing be? So if you had won 6 games and you lost 0 and you had 0 ties, what would this be?